There are a handful of games I find myself coming back to every year or so. Minecraft, Fallout New Vegas, Hoonipop, there's just something comforting in coming back to a familiar title from time to time, knowing what's around every corner, being familiar with every beat of the story. Sometimes you just need to be in a familiar place. About once a year, that familiar place, for me, is Portal 2. Like with most of the games I come back to regularly, what I like to call my comfort games, I started playing Portal 2 back in the day on my Xbox 360. I know it's nostalgia, a bit of looking back on them with rose-tinted glasses, but the games I played back on that old console still hold up in my mind. I might play Just Cause 3 to unwind nowadays, but back in the day, Just Cause 2 was my go-to game to blow off steam after a long day at school. Dishonored introduced me to an entirely different type of game, and started me on the path to discover some of my favorite titles. And Portal 2? Well, I wouldn't say it created a love of puzzle games or opened my mind to mind-bending platformers, but what it did do, it did very well. Portal 2 taught me that games can be more than corridors filled with polygons waiting to get shot, and that a game's story could be more than a vessel to carry me from set piece to set piece. From the get-go, Portal 2 lets you know what kind of game you're getting into. Even back before I appreciated such details in games, Stephen Merchant's voice work brought Wheatley, with all of his subtle stupidity and charm, to life in a way that no other character had before.
Plug me into that stick on the wall over there, yeah? And I'll show you something. You'll be impressed by this. Yeah, I can't do it if you're watching. Seriously, I'm not joking. Could you just turn around for a second? Bam! Secret panel that I opened while your back was turned.
At least in my mind. Wheatley, a small moronic metal ball, was the first aspect of a video game that made me realize that stories, characters, and worlds made for games could surpass even the best offerings from the silver screen. My first playthrough of Portal 2 was primarily spent focusing on solving the puzzles and getting to the credits, but it managed to do something that few single-player games had done at the time. It piqued my interest and brought me back for more. I'm in no way qualified to analyze the writing and world building put into the Portal franchise, but I am qualified to enjoy them. I wouldn't do the writers justice by trying to analyze why a game with a cast of only 3 characters managed to stick with me for over a decade, but I can at least point out what stuck with me.
Initiating surprise in 3, 2, 1.
I played Portal 2 before I played the first game in the series. If I had started my time in the test chambers and vaguely dystopian halls of Portal, I might have found myself drawn to GLaDOS' characterization. Ellen McLean's work is phenomenal, and if it's good enough to stick with Guillermo del Toro, it's good enough to stick with me.
Oh, it's you.
But I find myself visualizing Wheatley before GLaDOS when someone mentions Portals, because he was the character that made the greatest impression on me initially.
I just looked down. I do not recommend it. I've just done it again.
A combination of maturing and playing through the first Portal eventually led me to enjoy GLaDOS' personality and subtle character development more than I had the first time I played through Portal 2, but I still prefer Wheatley's rise to megalomaniac metal monstrosity over GLaDOS' subtle growth from cold, unfeeling artificial intelligence to a tragic amalgamation of human intelligence and compassion with unfeeling test initiatives. Part of the reason Portal 2 stuck with me long after my first time with it was its use of dramatic irony. The player has the benefit of existing outside of media, and in the case of Portal 2, our ability to see Wheatley not only through the player character Shell's eyes, but through our own leads to excellent moments of understated irony.
Most test subjects do experience some cognitive deterioration after a few months in suspension. Now, you've been under for quite a lot longer, and it's not out of the question that you might have a very minor case of serious brain damage.
Wheatley's stupidity, his lack of self-awareness, is not only played for comedic purposes, it's used to create an unreliable narrator. Sure, GLaDOS starts as the antagonist and eventually evolves into an uneasy ally, but Wheatley's seemingly simple parallel runs deeper than friend turned enemy. From the get-go, you sense a stupidity that goes beyond ignorance or carelessness.
What's going on? Who turned off the lights?
Hey, buddy! I'm speaking in an accent that is beyond her range of hearing.
Look, Metal Ball, I can hear you.
Run! I don't need to do the voice. Run!
The excellent dialogue and performances made for Wheatley drop hints to the player from the get-go that he is not to be trusted. Wheatley is an intelligence-dampening sphere, created to dial back the cunning and decisive nature of GLaDOS. A big part of his stupidity is his inability to see beyond the big picture. When he lets the power provided by GLaDOS's dethroning get to him, something beyond surface stupidity rears its ugly head.
This body's amazing, seriously. I can't get over how small you are, but I'm huge. Actually, why do we have to leave right now? Do you have any idea how good this feels?
Like most people hungry for power, he craves dominion over others out of an insecurity spawned from his own perceived inadequacy. In this specific case, he was created to be unintelligent, to make poor decisions, and with a lack of foresight. If the player pays close attention, the big twist becomes apparent long before Wheatley lets power get to his head.
And whose fault do you think it's going to be when the management comes down here and finds 10,000 flipping vegetables?
I think that's why Portal 2, and specifically Wheatley, had such an impression on me. I wouldn't have been able to fully grasp games and stories with multiple fleshed out characters back when I first played Portal 2. Back then, the time I spent in games like Skyrim was dedicated to enjoying the world and combat. The story didn't really mean much to me. I doubt I would have been able to enjoy games like The Witcher 3. I would have gotten bored by the slow pace of the combat and long stretches of time where dialogue takes the reins and steers the player into an intricate family squabble or political chaos. Before I was able to sit down and play games where constant stimulation was cast aside in favor of interesting characters and expansive stories, Portal 2 managed to provide a story that I could absorb as I made my way through test chamber after test chamber. My mind was stimulated by fun and compelling puzzles, but not to the point that I lacked headroom for the story to work its way into my subconscious. A combination of a limited cast and excellent writing, along with the phenomenal voice work and understated environmental storytelling, managed to allow Portal 2 to stick with me for over a decade. It broke through the fog, enveloping my burgeoning gamer mind, and introduced me to other aspects of games I wouldn't fully appreciate until at least 5 years down the line. Portal 2 is an example in my mind of a perfect game. And while I might not be qualified to point out every aspect of its development that led to the final perfect product, I feel confident in claiming that Eric Wolpaw, Jay Pinkerton, and Chet Falasek went above and beyond what was necessary to create an intriguing world and characters.
Wait, what if this hurts? What if this really hurts? I didn't think of that.
Oh, it will. Believe me, it will.
Are you just saying that, or is it really gonna hurt? You're just saying that, aren't you? No, you're not. It is gonna hurt, isn't it? Exactly how painful are we